Hey, baby, how you feel?
Hello. Today we're going to talk about the not one, but 2 times that I tried intermittent fasting and why I am never going to try it again. Welcome to my channel. I'm Sarah Anderson and I'm so happy to have you here. If you aren't subscribed, subscribe and hit the bell so that you don't miss out on any future videos, and because it really helps out my channel. Why I decided to try intermittent fasting in the first place, aka the benefits. I heard about intermittent fasting a number of years ago, also sometimes called IF. And I heard about it through Tim Ferriss and his podcast. Both he and a lot of the people that he associate are very into the IF lifestyle. But I didn't try it when I first heard about it because I get really hangry and I don't really like to not eat for long periods. That's basically it. That's what it boils down to. And so I decided that I didn't want to try it at the time, but I was intrigued by the benefits because they said that you can get increased mental focus and clarity and increased energy and clear your skin and lose weight, and all of those things sounded lovely. So at the time I was interested, but I didn't end up doing it. Fast forward to when I actually decided to try intermittent fasting. I had just started to go to a new gym. I had started a new job. That's not relevant, but I did. And I had just started with a new trainer because I had been coming off a recovery from an injury that I had, and I wanted to get back into shape. And my trainer had just started to dip her toes into the intermittent fasting world, and she was seeing really great results. And at the same time as she was telling me about that, I happened to listen to a podcast where they were talking about new research that has come out about intermittent fasting and how amazing it is for cell turnover, and particularly for cancer patients or for cancer prevention, and that there was even more that they were researching that they didn't even know yet, but everything they were finding was really amazing. And I decided, like, this is the time, I'm gonna give it a shot. I want all of the great effects that I've heard about from intermittent fasting, especially like at the time, just starting out at the gym, I wanted to lose weight, gain focus, have more energy, all of those things. So that's when I decided to start intermittent fasting. I decided to ease myself into it. So I started with my normal fasting period from when I stopped eating at night and when I started eating in the morning was about 9.5 to 10 hours. I would snack a little bit later at night and I would eat as soon as I woke up. There's so many conflicting things about when you should eat, but because I had heard that you should consume like 30 grams of protein when you first wake up. Anyway, I was having food right away when I woke up. So then I decided that I would expand this window, and I expanded it gradually. And I decided I would do a 6-week test of this, and if I liked it, I would continue on with it, and I would share my progress with you all, as I like to do. So start the experiment. I didn't really start that 6-week clock until I had eased my way to a 14-hour fasting period, with the hopes that I would get up to 16 hours within like a week or 2. And that way it wasn't like a shock to my system, and I could, you know, get into it in a sustainable way, since I knew that I was a little bit apprehensive about fasting to begin with. The first weeks were hard. I did not have increased energy. I was not able to focus in the morning, but I expected it because it was something that I was trying that was new, and I knew it was gonna take some time to get used to it. And so I was okay with it. I just kind of powered through. But I will say that as I continued on, that didn't get better. I ended up cutting this experiment short at just under 4 weeks. So I didn't do the full 6-week period because not only was I had less energy, I wasn't able to focus in the morning until I ate, which meant that I was losing hours of productivity at work in the morning. But on top of it, there were these other effects that really solidified my decision to cut it short. I noticed that I was getting cystic acne, which is very unlike me. I don't have perfect skin, and I do get acne sometimes. I'll get little pimples, but this was very different than the acne that I'm used to getting. This was very deep in my skin, very painful, and one of the other big differences is that it wasn't just on my face, I also was getting them on my neck. So I wasn't happy about that, but I think I would have continued on because it's like maybe your body's detoxing. That continued to get worse. Then I noticed that I was getting increasingly anxious. I tend to be a bit anxious. I'm an anxious person. And I really like dial in my lifestyle so that I feel the best that I can feel. But this was making me feel more and more anxious until I got to a point that it was really impacting the way that I was functioning day to day. And while I said I don't like not eating for long periods of time, and I would get hangry before, I had previously gone and gotten tested at with a doctor, testing my blood sugar levels to see if I do have issues with blood sugar. I don't. I tested completely normal throughout the entire period. I was regularly like checking my blood sugar levels throughout the day at home. I don't have a blood sugar problem, but I do have some of those symptoms. So I noticed that those sort of symptoms got worse, and then also I was getting really, really anxious after doing this for a long period of time. That's when I eventually decided that I had to just stop because it was not worth the impacts to my mental health. I will say that I did notice a threshold. I noticed that when I was doing this, anywhere up to about 14 hours was actually pretty okay. It wasn't comfortable and I didn't love it, but I could do it. It was really when I started to go over 14 hours of fasting that I noticed these symptoms increase. The acne and the anxiety really amped up. I'm jumping in here after editing the video because I realized that I told you in the beginning I was going to tell you about 2 times that I tried intermittent fasting, but I only told you about the first time. So let's talk about the second time. You may be wondering, if I had such a terrible experience the first time, why would I do it again? That is a very valid question. And the answer is, I really wanted it to work. There are so many great things that I hear about intermittent fasting all the time, and I figured if it didn't work out for me the first time, it was probably some sort of fluke, something weird, something went wrong, maybe it was just bad timing for me. But if I did it again, and when I did this again, it was like 6 or 7 months after the first time, so it was spring of 2019, and I was thinking, I'm feeling so good. There's nothing that could make me feel bad or anxious now. I'm just bulletproof and I'm gonna feel great doing intermittent fasting. And no, I did it again and I had the same experience. I had the same experience with my anxiety and I had the same experience with my complexion, and I did not lose weight, and just the same thing happened again. What's the definition of insanity? Yeah. This isn't so much a don't do this, intermittent fasting is awful, it's the worst thing ever, like stay away. It's really just more of a, hey, this is my story, this is what I experienced, because there are so many stories out there of how wonderful intermittent fasting is, and for a lot of people that seems to be the case, but I wasn't seeing any stories of the other side and what happens when it isn't awesome for you. And I did do some research around why maybe this wasn't awesome for me, and what I found is that when you're fasting, and this especially can impact women, when you're fasting, what you're doing is you're impacting your thyroid and you're impacting your cortisol levels and your estrogen, and those things can really have effects on your complexion or your stress levels and your anxiety. And the thing is, like, nothing happens in a vacuum, so it may also depend on other stress you have going on in your life, or if you're more predisposed to having sort of anxiety issues. All of those things are factored in, and it's not, nothing is a silver bullet solution. There's no one thing that is going to work for everyone. What works for me or doesn't work for me may or may not work for you. And I just think it's important to call that out, because there's so many people who are like, this is the answer, do it, or like, don't do that. And that's just not how it goes. How it goes is, if you're comfortable with experimenting, then I think you should experiment. I also think that it's really important to know yourself and take into account what you know about yourself when you're experimenting, and pay attention to how it's making you feel, because it's really important to look at ourselves in a really holistic way, because everything is very connected. So that's what I wanted to share with you, my hellish trip through intermittent fasting, and I hope that it was interesting and maybe useful for you if this is something that you were considering doing. Otherwise, have a wonderful rest of your day, and make sure to tell me in the comments below if you've tried intermittent fasting and if it went wonderfully sunshine and rainbows, or if it went terrible trash bag experience. I would love to know which way it's gone for you, or if you're thinking about trying it yourself. Okay, with that, I'm gonna say goodbye. Have a beautiful, wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you all later.
Yes, Lord, trying to get some new shit in there somewhere.